How do you implicate your parents?
How did I?
How do you implicate your parents?
Well, I implicate my father for dying when I was 4. He had a lot of nerves.
This is your mother.
My mother didn't know any better.
Yeah.
She really didn't. Her life was, on the surface of things, much more difficult than mine. But you see, when you're in a mode to learn. When I was in high school and in public school, I kept getting C's. I was a poor student, and I was worried about it because I was working hard and I was trying hard. The difficulty was I couldn't listen. My mind kept jumping around. So I said to my mother that I was upset about the C's, and she said, "What do you care? All you want to do is pass." And so I thought, is that all she thinks I want? Or all she wants me to want? And the latter was true. This is all she wanted me to want. She never came to any of my graduations. She never had one of her own. She was sweeping factory floors at 13 years old. So I hated her. And then I understood her. And I don't approve of what she did, but I understand her.
And one more question. How could you have an acting career and be on all these drugs?
That was the trouble. That was why I left it. Because we studied the technique of keeping the performance alive night after night after night. But when you have that kind of depression, technique is not going to save you. So I got out of it. I got out of it before it got any worse. And I never had the blessing of a long run. The Broadway shows I were in lasted 6 weeks and the other 3 days. So.
Did you miss that part of your life totally or not? The acting? Did you miss the acting totally? That part of your life was finished? Did you ever miss it very much?
I never stopped acting.
You never stopped.
On and off stage. Sure, everybody does.
That's right.
Please, it's not the truth.
Did you say that you could read a few minutes of something in Dr.
Would you mind?
Yes, I would like to hear it.
It's 5 more minutes and it's in praise of a doctor.
Yes.
And, this is when I'm 37 years old. It's 1971, and I'm on the verge of my first university job at University of Northern Iowa, where my friend Lori and my editor, Lori, recommended a psychiatrist, Dr. Finkelstein. As I meet him from the distance of memory, his great mop of curly red hair mingled with threads of gray, his calm, penetrating gaze, his abiding warmth and gravity, I realized I loved him from the start. And because he was the first doctor in or out of hospital to help me, I want to remember my time with him in some detail. After hearing about my therapeutic experiences, he conceded, "I can understand why you went to so many doctors, but when you saw yourself standing still, why did you stay?" I didn't know I was standing still. They told me that progress is hard for the difficult to... They told me that progress is as hard for the doctor to chart as it is for the patient to feel. But when you began slipping backwards, they said regression is part of the process. They forbade me to read in the area, you know. I never went beyond Psych 1 in college. Obedient little girl. Didn't you ask me why? Again, why did I submit to such savagery? I couldn't trust my instincts even in the face of knowing that I was being punished. That I was more than the sum of my maladies, I knew. That I was afraid to leave, afraid I'd fall apart alone. They made me feel so sick, I thought treatment was all of human intercourse I could have. I was silent a moment. Then, one thing I know. Being forced into a closet is nothing to the psychic labor pains of being forced out. I was locked in closets as a child, that's what this refers to, because you don't remember why we were forced in. I had indeed forgotten. Dr. Finkelstein never asked for my feelings, but let them come at their will. When finally I told him I loved him, he said he knew, but it was nothing to feel anxious about. Of course, I jumped instantly to the importance of my work. Look, you're a person first, he began. No, I cried in protest. He let me hear that cry. Let me find my error. If I was to be faulted, it was for want of respect for my mind. But the other doctors didn't think I had one. Records showed that each echoed his predecessor's judgment of my intelligence as average. Was that why none ever challenged my courage? But Dr. Finkelstein did. The day I admitted I enjoyed taking the medications his psychiatrist colleague, Dr. Ford, had prescribed. Really, he asked, with a kindly, half-pitying smile. Oh, what skill to allow that slight tinge of contempt, even though he felt it, to mingle with his sympathy. The value of an inadvertent look, no overzealous badgering. You want people to think poor thing she can't help herself. None of that would work. Just the timely delivery of a really. And I was on my way. Toward the end of the fall semester, my early memories began to storm back with greater force than I could control. Dr. Finkelstein saw it coming before I did. Carole, why don't you go over to the hospital, he said. Then, sensing my despair, you think this is just another failure, don't you? It's anything but. I was admitted to Allen Memorial Hospital in Waterloo between the fall and spring semesters of '72. Medical records penned by Dr. Ford indicate that Payne Whitney's discharge diagnosis of my chronic undifferentiated schizophrenia had changed to the schizoaffective type, characterized by acute melancholic episodes, alternating with severe emotional disturbance. Dr. Ford, who recorded my symptoms as depression, anxiety, disorganization of thinking, and dissociative episodes of crying, treated them with tofranil, thorazine, stelazine, and intramuscular injections of the relaxant Vistarol. Those are the facts. Here is the experience. During the group therapy session, a fellow patient, hearing the story of my childhood, wagged her head with the comment, "Look at that. She spent her whole life in a dark closet." And suddenly I broke the lock. Screams stifled for 37 years rushed out of me like buried fire. I was engulfed in wave after wave of terror. My screams gave no warning. Before I'd had time to run out of the room, another was underway. Always I was asked to return, thanked for my consideration by the staff member present. I could not enter the bathroom unattended without screaming. What must have happened in there, I asked Dr. Finkelstein in a calmer moment. He shrugged. The actual memory might surface and it might not. What did it matter as long as my feelings were breaking free? His thinking was not only correct, but keen. Once during visiting hours, I saw a plump, smiling, bald man I was certain was my father. My terror must have frightened the visitors. Again, I was asked to leave the room. Mindful of being in the hands of a caring, dedicated staff, I understood why. They always told me when Dr. Ford or Dr. Finkelstein called to ask how I was. When I pleaded with the day nurse going off duty, "Where are you going? Take me with you." She knew I'd become a little girl again, pleading with my mother to take me with her to the store. One night I began stretching out into what I feared was a catatonic stupor, but which turned out to be a muscle spasm from too much medication. I broke the rigidity midway by a scream, given a shot of Vistarol, followed by repeated injections of the sleeping medication Somnus. I traipsed into the kitchen at 4 a.m. to get my third snack, when Nurse Claudia marveled how you can still navigate. We laughed at the middle-aged 3-year-old searching the house for her mother. But Claudia was no bother. Claudia was kind. I asked Dr. Finkelstein if he thought I could make friends with her after I left the hospital. Let her be your nurse, friend. A wonderful nurse who had only to look at me to sense an oncoming wave of terror, and she'd lead me quickly to a punching bag that I'd beat in rhythm to the shouted prayer, health, strength, confidence, again and again and again. I bless the utterance of despair, the act that achieves mercy. Lori visited all the time, bringing with my toiletries and clothing textbooks for the spring semester. I may have been flailing around in mid-ocean, but with students registering for classes, it was time to drag myself to shore. What a friend. Is it odd that despite her, Claudia, and Dr. Finkelstein, my loneliness never felt keener? The more I had, the more I craved. The more I craved, the more I wrote. With loneliness nourished on relationships, my healthy grief bore fruit, not once, but many times. And that explains it. Anything else?
When you went off the medication, I'm sure you had to find ways to cope with it. You know, you could feel a feeling that you're regressing or something. Did your acting help you to learn how to deal with the symptoms?
You know, I wasn't a complete mess. When I was in class, I was in class, and I think in a heightened state of consciousness, as I said, I could pinpoint problems in student manuscripts. I was teaching at a very high level. I lost my temper, but I controlled it. I don't ordinarily do that, not in the classroom, but I did it. I mean, something annoyed me, I let a student know it. That's as far as I went for being just a little freer. And I knew right away, this was perfectly fine. People like to know where they stand. Yeah.
I had a friend who, lifelong artist, who had tripping bouts of depression and things like that, and he was waiting, so he couldn't work. And he did a lot of therapy, drugs. The only thing that worked was shock therapy.
Yeah, it does work.
And I wondered if that was ever an option for you.
But it was given to me, and the purpose of it is to, when you're in such a state that you can't function at all, it gets you to receive therapy. It improves you right away. There were people who couldn't eat, anorexics, who suddenly started overeating. It works immediately. The only difficulty is it's a temporary solution. It's not a solution, it's a temporary means to allow yourself to work in therapy.
Isn't it actually that they don't really know what it does? It's kind of, it just shake you up. It shakes up. I mean, my friend,
You lose your short-term memory.
well, I think it's very different for different people.
Yeah.
But it worked for my friend for years and years and years.
He took it that long.
Well, it would be like one set of treatments, and that would be it. Be fixed for 10 or 20 years. But I think it's very, there are all kinds of shocks.
And 20 years is very good. A lot of people think it's harmful. I don't know. I longed for it because it was relief.
Yeah.
Anything for relief.
And it's non medicine.
No, but you take medicine
I relate in a very small way. In the 80s, they gave me some antidepressants. And at that time, and I wasn't a very emotional person, but whatever they gave me flattened me out totally. So that I threw it away. Because I couldn't stand being that emotionless. My emotions didn't come back until like my wife got married. Somehow that awakened a lot in me. Not really questions coming.
I wonder if instead of all the medication and the hospitalizations, there could be a haven for the release of intolerable feelings when you can't help but cry on the street. Some place to go where this is allowed, where it's encouraged. Why don't we have that? Why do we have to have hospitals with medicine that the staff gives you to make life easier for them?
Each for that.
Yeah.
Over-medication. I can't answer that, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it was just a comment.
Cedric, from your book, are you talking out, speaking out on the effects of all of that medication and over-medication, starting practically from year olds? Do you speak out, any public speaking or anything?
No, but I would if I had a platform to do it on. I think it's appalling. The kids are not allowed to be kids, and the parents ought to ask themselves what are they doing wrong or what's wrong outside here. I mean, let the parents take those pills and see how they like it.
Yeah.
Well, I'm furious with that. We don't do that to a child. A child be a child. They're wild. We're little animals. That's what we are. We are animals. And we need to be I had an older sister who was just as miserable as I was, but she had me to be cruel to because there was nothing else to strike out at. If she had been taught, if there was somebody there to tell us, to let us know, so that ifs and ands.
I was at a child's party a few years back. They were between the ages of 7 and 10. There must have been about 30 children there. And there was 5 children I noticed. They were not playing or anything. They were just staring. And I happened to ask a friend, why are those children so quiet? He said, they're well now. I said, excuse me? They're well. They're on pills and they were so just running around all the time. I said, you honestly believe by taking their childhood away? He said, well, they never stopped. I said, I didn't realize he was related to me. And her mother and her brother decided children had too much energy, and this made the mom feel better knowing they were extra quiet. To put children on pills between the ages of 7 and 9, that's a disgrace. And there, as you know, there's hundreds of thousands of children that are on pills because they say they're overexcited. What have we done to our children? It's sickening. This is something that shouldn't be fought. I mean, to see children walking around like zombies, that's ridiculous. I mean, a child's supposed to run around. That's what children do. To say that they should be standing there and not enjoying their childhood, that just upsets the hell out of me.
Have you spoken out?
Oh, absolutely.
Oh.
The lady hasn't spoken to me since then.
No, not in that domain, but out in the public domain.
Yeah, I've done that quite a bit because my daughter has gone through this with her child, because they said she was overly excited and she was contemplating. And I told my daughter, don't you dare. And she's a child, let her run around. That's what they're supposed to do. And they say, well, she overdoes it. She disturbs the class. And I said, quite all right. We'll talk to her about that, but no pills. Absolutely not. Yeah, I talked about it, and I'm told that I overdo. What do they say? They says, please don't bring your dad. He doesn't know how to control himself.
Maybe they'll change and give the pills to you.
You know, they try. That time, like I said, I threw those away. I didn't know who I was.
Please.
If your mother locked you in the closet.
Not my mother, but my mother went to take over my father's store. There was a maid who took care of the house. And
She locked you in the
she
closet?
did it, yes.
You didn't tell your mother?
No. She said she'd kill me if I did.
That is a child.
She was from a country where she was being very, very, very oppressed. You read about her. Or, yes.
Your other writing is, I mean, this writing and your other writing is so very vivid. Is that a way to work out some of the,
Oh, sure, the pleasure you get from reading something that you're pleased with doesn't go away. When I'm depressed nights when I've got nothing to do, I just think about it and I smile. That's terrible.
Very honest.
It helps, yes, of course it helps.
the fat servant lady, or some of your characters, no?
The fat lady
the
is
servant. I think that writing is so freeing. It's freeing, and writing is very freeing. It allows us to explore our emotions. It allows us to, I believe, to have the opportunity to get to our authentic voice, to shut out the noise of the world, other people telling us who to be, what to be, and how to say it, how not to say it.
That's writing in the beginning, writing necessarily, but then you open up and you see into other people and you create scenes and you create dramatic conflicts and situations where it's not only you anymore. You fade into the distance and you see, present what you see. Yeah. But you have to observe all the time. As Henry James said, you be somebody upon whom nothing is lost. Slips of the tongue, anything that you notice. How many of you write here? And also, the lessons you learn when you are in a state of despair. To treat yourself like a good parent, give into it for a limited amount of time, and then say to yourself, if I don't get to the desk by a certain time, don't bother to go there tomorrow. But you do go, and you feel better for it. You become your own parents, and you spite for a good cause. I didn't finish that story about when my mother said, all you want to do is pass, don't you? For spite, I began to do better in school. As soon as I perceived that she didn't want me to succeed, then I did it for spite. So for spite, even for bad qualities, put them to a good cause. The way Martha Mitchell spilled the beans on Watergate to spite her husband. That was to spite for a good cause. You learn, and once you begin to learn, you know that you'll never go back, unless you want to. It's really an unconscious choice. How much do you, as a therapist, how much do you think illness is an unconscious choice? It's comfortable, isn't it? Despair can be comfortable.
From my experience, when I'm with clients, some of them seem so clear. I mean, they're clear, and I begin to wonder who's really. Yes, who's really the patient? Somebody is so clear. I tend to think sometimes that my clients, they think on such a higher level, and they have such a deeper meaning, a deeper depth, that so many don't have an opportunity to explore. They're not aware of, or they're just not aware of. They haven't dealt that deep within themselves. They haven't. And some people just have a third eye. You know, you hear about the third eye, or thinking of the fourth or fifth or sixth eye, and seeing things that we can't. So many people, so many of us can't even imagine that they're just operating on a different plane. And so it's, in some respects, it's not so much them, it can be us. So I think before we're so quick to give someone a diagnosis, that there needs to be, I'm so happy, a place of experience.
Because it distances ourselves from it.
Yes.
By labeling, by giving you a label, it distances.
Yes.
We go from a state of being we don't understand.
So I try to find a way of connecting, and I truly believe that we just throw away all the labels, and we're just connecting from human experience, from human place.
Oh, sure.
And then that's giving us so much food for thought.
Okay, thank you.